My name is Ryan New. I'm the instructional lead at Jefferson County Public Schools. Today we're going to be looking at how do I simplify an inquiry-based lesson. This is a question that we get a lot. Inquiry seems very complicated, and it is, but we can certainly try to take it down to its constituent parts, which is essentially what is the question, what are the sources, and what is the task. For this inquiry, we're looking at the compelling question, what's so special about Appalachia? The supporting question, how does music reflect life in Appalachia, is a way of helping students build knowledge and skills in order to better able to answer the compelling question. What you see before you are all the standards that we're going to be teaching in this one lesson. You'll notice here that I've highlighted key aspects of these standards in order to better accentuate them through the process. You'll notice at the top we have a questioning standard, where we're going to be looking at supporting questions to develop an understanding specifically around economics and geography. We have a geography standard that looks at cultural and economic decisions in various places, in this case, in Appalachia. An economic standard that looks at national trends and impacts on Kentucky's state and local economies. We also have using evidence so that we can evaluate from multiple sources around economics, geography, and U.S. history. And finally, we have communicating conclusions, where students will engage in disciplinary thinking as they construct an explanation. So here we have what is the question, what are the tasks, and what are the sources that students are going to be engaging in. Our question, how does life reflect life in Appalachia? We'll be using two different sources. We've got song lyrics from Loretta Lynn. We also have song lyrics from Dwight Yoakam. Students will be able to use those sources in order to complete tasks. The first task that students will be completing will be an organizational task that allows them to see the sources so they can evaluate them. Once they've done so, students will be better prepared to engage in the formative performance task, which is explain with evidence how music reflected cultural and economic life in Appalachia. If you're paying attention to the standards that were there before, we see explain as part of the communicating conclusions, with evidence, that's using evidence from the using evidence standard, and ultimately the two disciplinary standards will be reflected in the cultural and economic decisions that are being made during Appalachia. Here is the first source that students will be engaging in. You'll notice that we have excerpted this source, as well as provide a map to help contextualize where it is that Loretta Lynn lived in Appalachia. Additionally, we provided a link so that students can not only hear the lyrics, they can also see the singer as well. This helps bring sources to life, that sources are real people that had real ideas and real emotions. And so here we have a situation where students will be able to hear a part of this because the music itself is also part of that source, not just the lyrics. You'll notice here that after students look at and listen to source A, they'll engage in disciplinary literacy. Who created the source and when was it created? This helps us better contextualize the disciplinary standards when it comes to the economic and cultural decisions that students are making, as well as the natural trends that are having an impact on Kentucky's economy. Once students do the disciplinary literacy, they will then look specifically at one of the disciplinary standards that has them to look at what might be influencing cultural and economic decisions within the region of Appalachia. We then repeat this process. Source B is looking at and also listening to Dwight Yoakam's Reading, Writing Route 23, which you can see is also on the map that we've included. The red line there helps situate Route 23 and includes both where Loretta Lynn was and Dwight Yoakam. Including a source like this provides some context to where this is happening in Appalachia because the place is so specific to the needs of the question and the standards. Once students look and listen to source B, they will complete an organizational task once again, just as they did for source A. Who created this source? When was it created? Those are disciplinary type questions that allow us to better understand where this source comes from. Students then will also engage in looking at the direct connection to the standards. What is influencing cultural and economic decisions within the region? Once students are able to go through this organizational task, they will be better prepared to explain with evidence how music reflected cultural and economic life in Appalachia. Now, teachers don't go away during all of this. They will be able to provide a lot of the context and backgrounds for students to help make connections during this process. We never want to just throw sources or questions at students and expect them to do well on their tasks. It is up to the teachers and also the fellow students to help go through this process, right? As we're engaging in those questions and engaging in that discussion. Once students complete this formative performance task, here you'll notice that it will be done inside of a Google form. Then we have a completion of the question, task, and sources. Again, the goal is to simplify the inquiry process. Once you become more accustomed to it, then you can provide all types of nuance. In this session, we've been looking at what is the question, what is the task, what are the sources as we simplify that inquiry process. And we've engaged in two types of tasks. One, an organizational task where we're completing a chart, where we've evaluated resources that both connect to disciplinary literacy and also directly looking at the standard itself, as well as completing an explanation with evidence about how those sources help answer that question. We've used song lyrics from Loretta Lynn and Dwight Yoakam, as well as a map that helps contextualize where these two individuals lived during this time. So with that, let's return to our standards. In this lesson, we had supporting questions to develop an understanding of economics and geography. In our disciplinary standards, we have cultural and economic decisions, which we put directly onto the organizational task, so that we can talk about, as well, national trends that impact Kentucky's state and local economies. In this case, it has to do with energy consumption, specifically around coal and how coal helps impact and influence a specific region. In this case, Appalachia. We had students to evaluate multiple sources, 2 is good enough, around economics, geography, and U.S. history, so that they can engage in that disciplinary thinking and construct explanations in their understanding of how to use those sources from those disciplines to answer that larger question. Thank you, and this has been How Do I Simplify an Inquiry-Based Lesson?